Hi and welcome to the Outquisitions podcast, where we spotlight industry leaders redefining success. The goal of each episode of the podcast is to uncover their stories, their strategies, and insights to inspire, inform, and really elevate your own journey. So let's dive into today's conversation with yet another super inspiring guest. If you want to listen to a really interesting talk, then stay tuned. So, Vince, thank you for coming over to the podcast. To kick things off, could you please share a little bit about yourself and what motivated you starting your own company?
Well, I didn't start WarriorSage. I joined it after being a mentor. I started it after being a mentee. So I sought out a CEO coach about a year ago. And in that process, very quickly, I realized that the work that this company did connected deeply with me. And I had begun to burn out on my other job. I had, a big operation, 550 employees, doing about $30 million a year. And we had a lot of regulatory challenges. We're in the animal rights world. And so that began to really wear on me after a couple of years. I had a big change in my own faith from my religion. Wow. And that process, so I was a Mormon. I was very devout, 100% believer. And my faith shelf broke. Mm-hmm. When that happened, and after realizing that I was feeling burnout in my business, I sought out a mentor, and that was WarriorSage. After 5 or 6 meetings in that new process, I realized that's when I'm doing that, when I'm in that space, I feel most alive. I feel most connected to myself. And I hadn't quite experienced it to that level. It was a new experience for me. It cracked me wide open. And that's why I made the shift.
Beautiful. Wow. Can you present the company? I mean, what's the mission? Who are you currently serving? Would you be able to serve me? Let's say you want to pitch me, so you can actually help me. I want to hear more.
Yeah. So WarriorSage has spent the last 15 or 20 years working with highly successful business owners. Normally, these are people that are well on their way to 8 figures, if not 8 or 9 figures already. We have a master circle. We call it the Lotus Sword. And that's our flagship product. That's really what it's all about. We do have a few people that are in the ultra high net worth, billionaire status that pay $1 million a year plus to be in a Titans circle. And then we have our main product, Lotus Sword, $50,000 a year mastermind. And in that place, we work on 2 major aspects or dimensions of business owners' lives: the inner work, the enlightenment, the inner awareness, the higher levels of consciousness. And my partner leads in that aspect. And then I lead on the outer world mastery, the business scaling. I've had several successful exits and businesses that I've taken to 8 figures. And so I teach the tools that I utilize to develop those growth patterns in those businesses.
Okay, interesting. So do you market exclusively in the US, in Northern America, or also in Europe and maybe even in Asia or China and so on?
We have clients all over the world.
Wow.
Yeah, all over the world.
Okay. Would it be possible in terms of percentage? Would you say it's maybe, I don't know, like 60% Northern America?
It's funny you say that because I was about to say 60%.
Okay.
60% North America, Greece, Europe, Australia, I guess South America.
Yeah.
So they kind of dot the map a little bit. It's a little bit easier because we have a weekly call on Thursdays at 11 a.m. Mountain Time. Mm-hmm. And so some of the people on the other side of the world, they're joining our calls pretty late at night.
Okay. Yeah. What are some of the key needs, or let's say challenges, that your core customers or partners, let's say, face before joining you?
Oh man, what a great question. I can tell you the situation I was in. Had developed a multi 8-figure net worth, great income, had kind of bought everything that most people would aspire to buy. I owned airplanes, big fancy cabins, 9,000 square foot home, probably 23, $24 million worth of real estate, liquid millions in the bank, 401ks, just kind of had everything. And in fact, I remember one day about a year and a half, 2 years ago, driving on a vacation with my family, and we had taken 2 Porsches, a Lamborghini, and a Bentley, and we're driving down to this beautiful beach home with my family. And that night, I remember feeling unfulfilled. And I looked down and I saw the cars down there in the parking lot and the house that we were in, and I thought, oh my goodness, is this it?
Right.
Is this it? I mean, really? I've seen a lot of people end up in that path where the business becomes the baby, where the business becomes the drive at the expense of the things that matter most, the relationships, physical health, and my spirituality. And so one of the main problems that business owners have, you have the business owners that are very successful with money in business, that have burnout, lack of purpose, lack of connection in other areas of their lives. They're not successful. And if they're not successful in other areas of their lives, first, it leads to immense regret. It's like a state of hell. You get to the latter part of your life, and you get there, even the back nine of your life, you get there and you say, oh, wow, where am I going with this? Like, what's the whole point of getting these 7-figure checks? So that's a big piece of it. The other reason people come in is because they have perhaps done a lot of the inner work. Perhaps they've been able to get to a place with connect their heart, connect their mission, but they simply don't have the business mastery skills to scale their business. And so they're working 50, 70, 90 hours a week so that they don't have to work for someone else 40 hours a week, right? And it's a rat race. And it's just simply because they haven't mastered how to scale. They don't understand that, they've just not had a mentor teach them how to develop a business that is self-managed, that becomes valuable, that can be sold, that they can exit, or that they could pass on to someone else and they can go live and have freedom. Take vacations, be with their family, retire, develop an income stream that will take care of them for life and give them the freedom to do what they want, to go where they want, when they want. So those are the two aspects. And so the idea there is, as we develop mastery in their business world, and as we develop their inner mastery, where we're developing depth with their family relationships, with their fun and their recreation, with their spirituality, with their relationships, with their physical body. Mm-hmm. A lot of business owners get so busy in the drive. They're so obsessed with their success, going from a $3 million a year to a $5 million income, perhaps. Like that doesn't really change that much, right? Okay, so now I'm buying Lamborghinis instead of Porsches, or now I'm buying Bentleys instead of Range Rovers. It doesn't really change anything. It's about 5 or 6 days, and that car's like, all right, it's kind of fun, but every time I bought a new boat or a new fancy something, it surprises me. Sometimes it's a couple of days, and I'm like, all right, that didn't last that long. So it's developing the fulfillment that comes from having total equilibrium in your life and mastering all aspects of life so that you really become a master in all dimensions. Your physical health is dialed in. You really understand weightlifting, macros, circadian rhythm. In the relationship, you really understand validation and loving and conflict resolution. In your business, you understand leadership and connecting, making contact with the hearts of the people, and creating a abundance for the people around you and a safe environment for them, a culture of trust. So putting all of that together It takes coaching, it takes mentoring, it takes expertise, it takes people who have been there and done that. That's the idea.
Right, right. I have one question, which is this is absolutely not a question I planned to ask, but it might be relevant for some people. Do you think, let's say someone wants to start a business and this human being has total equilibrium right off the bat for some reason. So he has both the external, he knows about business, how to scale and so on. He's quite obsessed, but at the same time, he's good with himself and the people around him, a good social life. Like he has equilibrium. Do you think this person is able to reach success in business knowing he has equilibrium when he started? Or on the other hand, do you think that this being kind of extreme and lacking in some other areas is a prerequisite to reach high levels of success in business? Does that make sense?
100%. And I'll say this, I've heard a couple of claims from very successful billionaires that you ought to just go grind it out, sleep at the office, work 120 hours. I've heard others say, skip the morning routine and just work. You'll get so much more done. I disagree for two major reasons. The first one is, if you have equilibrium, don't wreck it with a business. Like, don't let the business rob you of that. When that happens, you become a slave to the business, and now you have a job, not a business. Most people don't understand the difference. They're so busy in their business, they're like on payroll, basically, as another employee, as opposed to working on their business, where the business gets to a point where it's a vehicle for their lifestyle. Most people have a work style, they don't have a lifestyle. Their business doesn't create a lifestyle for them. All it does is rob them of the time. They have the one thing they can't renew. So I would say that someone that has equilibrium, stick with it. Stick with the morning routines that allow you to be able to be centered, to greet each day with enthusiasm, with an open heart, with the connection to your purpose, with the connection to your mind. The best symbiotic relationship is this one here. And when that inner world can then be manifest to the outer world, people will be far more productive. They'll be able to be proactive because their intentions are so clear. And so I would say that person working 30 hours a week is going to be more productive than the one working 100 hours a week that is not truly centered and empowered and empowering the people around them because of their depth and their energy. In other words, the best leaders, they care about their people. They come every day and they make contact with that care and that concern for the people around them. And that gets the team to move the business in the right direction. Without that, it is very hard. And without that, you have to grind it out. You don't have a choice. But with that, you have people around you that because you're creating abundance and security and fulfillment for them, they're in a place working in their area of expertise, their sphere of genius. They're feeling recognized and rewarded, and they're feeling they're contributing. Now I've got a business. Yeah. That's leadership, and it's the rarest commodity on the planet. It's more rare than gold and diamonds and oil and everything else. And if you just look at the elections, it's just any elections, you'd say, okay, is that the best we've got right now? Is that the best we've got? Like, we can't find an MLK Jr., we can't find an Abraham Lincoln. No, I don't see any. It's a lack of leadership. It's a cultural problem right now. It's a cultural cancer.
Wow. Where do you think this lack of leadership stems from? Is it a lack of awareness in terms of alignment with oneself and business-wise? And where does it come from? Do you have any ideas?
I do. I've thought a lot about this. I developed the habit a few years ago of meditating. And very often I go to places like this. I love to study philosophy. I love to study the greatest minds in history, Stoicism. I love to go back thousands of years and realize our species has been very wise and very deep for thousands of years. Eastern culture tends to go within They tend to meditate and be quiet and maintain relationships, and parents and grandparents and children and grandchildren are all together and there's community. And they're not so much worried about what they're wearing or what they're driving or what others think. If you just watch them and feel into their energy and their state, you see more calm. And the studies on happiness show this by country. The Western world has become obsessed with a sickness, which is external success. It is not success. I know it because I've worked with, I was a financial planner. And I remember when I decided not to be a financial planner anymore, it was when one of my clients with a $10 million inheritance found a way with my instrumentality to cut out her brother from the $10 million inheritance. That is a case in point that drives home the disease that Western civilization has. And so we, in Western society, we usurp, we define success as things. And like the Little Mermaid, you want thingamabobs, I got 20, but who cares? I want more. It's the Greatest Showman. He says he was running, there's a great song there. He says he was running at the crazy speed of always needing more. So when my business got to 14 locations, I had 20 million visitors to my business, and had probably a $60 million valuation at the time. And all I could think was my mergers and acquisition strategy. What was my pipeline? It had 46 things in there. I had 6 under letter of intent. I had this $100 million line of credit from a private equity company. And it's like, can I get to be this? Can I be the biggest and I love to be able to tell people I own more of these, otters and sloths and this than anyone ever in the world. And I used to just think of that as a badge of honor, like someone's going to think I'm amazing because of it. That all shifted for me when my current mentor, Satyen, broke me open. And I just saw things entirely differently. In fact, not only did I see things differently from my own viewpoint, I was able to fully empathize and see why the animal rights people hated me. I completely got it. I thought, yeah, I get it. I can feel that. And I developed a respect and an understanding for them, and thus an empathy. That helped me to see so much more clearly. It's the very thing that actually helped me to be able to leave the Mormon church, which is to remove my bias, get outside of myself like I'm having an out-of-body experience, and look at myself and what I was doing and what my priorities were and what my intention and focus was, and say, oh, do I admire that man? When I'm 90 in the nursing home and telling stories, am I going to want to tell the stories? Hell no. No, those aren't the stories I want to tell. I want to tell the stories here, not the ones up here. I was so far in my head, and so that connection down to the heart allowed me to have so much more clarity on what the meaning of life is as cliche as that may sound.
No, yeah, it does make sense, definitely. Would you have 1 or 2 practices that you can recommend for anyone that actually wants to be more aware and have this kind of out-of-body experience, or at least at some level?
Well, I will say that if you're not meditating, I tell people meditate, and I hear people say, I tried it, it's not for me. You don't understand meditation. I get it. I understand why you're saying that. Sit with it. Push through that ceiling until you hit this break point. It's kind of like when you're breaking the sound barrier and things just get very clear all of a sudden. For me, it's happened in a very profound way. And so now when I meditate, I can take that 20, 30-minute process, and within a minute or two, I can get to a state of like sound wave barrier, and I'm now inside. I've closed the door behind me to what anybody thinks, approval, what anyone else has defined as success, what anyone else has defined as what my life should look like. And I'm able to sit with Vince and see little Vince, little tiny Vince, this little guy.
Right.
And I'm also able, and this is an exercise I'll tie in that I think is extremely helpful. is I spent a lot of time with my future self and just being receptive here to that future self that has somehow been through all the challenges and all the fears that current Vince faces. And so very often I will go and spend time with that future version of me that has become a man that I admire, a man that I want to seek wisdom from. And so it's as if I just eliminate time and space and go right to him and sit on. We always go to the same place on the beach in Hawaii, and we're sitting there talking, and he's wearing a white linen shirt. He's just relaxed. He's taking care of his body. He's been able to get to a place of unconditional love. And so spending time with him helps me to get centered. It helps me to reconnect with my purpose. It helps me to reconnect with myself. And I think that those are two exercises that the first two that come to mind.
Wow. Okay. Amazing. Amazing. Anyone listening right now that wants to take part in all that and receive wisdom, what are some of the packages that are available? I mean, how can we actually seek that wisdom with you?
Yeah. We have two main products. The first one is the Lotus Sword Inner Circle. The Lotus Sword, because the lotus is a flower, and that seed can blossom through a foot of water right in the middle of mud and muck. So it's in the midst of all of our life circumstances, all of our trauma. Being human is traumatic. And I didn't realize that until a year ago. But once I did realize it, I was able to begin that process of healing the inner self. Healing simply meaning that the beliefs that I had acquired from a very young age, probably when I was 3 or 4, frankly, that they didn't serve me any longer. And so unpacking that and then getting a system upgrade helped me tremendously. So the Lotus Sword, $50,000 a year. This is for entrepreneurs that are heart-centered, impact-driven. They're a mentor, they're a mentee, and they're developing success in every aspect of their lives. They're becoming warrior sages. The other side of our business is we certify leaders, coaches in our processes that help to get success. We've done that for about 1,000 coaches this week. And in fact, right now, we've got about 55 on a call. So we have about 7 master trainers that are training these 55 or 60 maybe this week, students who are, some of them PhDs, some of them clinicians that are ready to, or at least have a desire to improve their own efficacy within the work that they do with their own patients. And so if you're one of those people that is in the industry, you're in leadership, you're in the business of helping, coaching others, we have a program where we certify people. And that's a $3,000 a year or $3,000 one-time program. And then that program leads to a master's coach circle, which is a $10,000 a year investment. We've got about 35, 40 people in that. So those are our two main circles. And then for people that are in the generally several $100 million net worth or billionaire plus, we have a Titans circle, which is 7-figure investment.
Amazing, brilliant. One last question: How do you envision the next 5 to 10 years, especially in the West, in the Western world? Do you see, the curve going a little bit back up, and the mindsets of the different societies getting better, or actually quite the opposite?
I'm very optimistic. I'm excited about the future. I think 2 big things will happen. I think we'll continue to move towards a unity consciousness, which is just simply, we will realize that humans do better together. We do better in tribes and communities. And there, I believe, is already an intense movement of enlightenment, of higher consciousness, of the idea of healing and system upgrades and getting beyond the childhood psychology that has almost all of us living in a box that's about this big. I believe religion will continue to be on the decline, that it very often can be an obstacle to spirituality. I do think it served its purpose for a lot of millennia, and that's on its way out into a higher state of being and enlightenment. And so I believe that will continue, and I believe that combined with science and technology just being on a hyperbolic growth trajectory, that the way we do business and the way we do life will change very quickly. Businesses will begin to have tribal knowledge stored into an AI computer brain within a few years. Being able to go and get your training from that brain for that business, especially businesses that are a little bit bigger, the ones that we work with. Those developments, and then the culture of businesses is just continuing to increase. We're seeing it with the work that we do. As a result of that, here's what's beautiful. There's a song from Rush called "Closer to the Heart." It says, the ones who hold high places must be the ones who start to mold a new reality closer to the heart. And the idea is, when leaders are enlightened, when leaders are heart-centered, when leaders are connected to their people, everybody improves their well-being, their quality of life. People go home and show up to their kids and their friends and their spouses with more love, with better energy, with a better frequency, because of the culture that they were in for the greater part of their waking lives at work. So I'm excited about that, and I think that my kids will and grandkids will live will be approaching utopia.
Beautiful. Yeah, optimistic. Great. Last question. How can people reach out to you?
WarriorSage.com.
Brilliant. Great. Thank you, Vince, for the time. It was amazing.
That was awesome, man. Thank you so much.